Soul Society arc of Bleach is an arc that I don't think it really needs much of an introduction. This section of the story is easily the most iconic and talked about in the series, and for a good reason. While I personally am not a fan of how Soul Society arc has been used as a weapon to downplay the remainder of the series and what it does, it genuinely cannot be denied that this arc is absolutely incredible, and one of the few times I can say this from a truthful place: peak shonen. This arc is what put Bleach on the map and truly made it a staple in Weekly Shonen Jump. But why? That is what I'll be answering as I give my thoughts and opinions explaining why Soul Society arc is Battle Shonen Masterclass. I'll also be talking about the entire Arrancar saga, Fullbring, and 1000-Year Blood War arcs next, so if you don't want to miss those videos alongside many more, please hit the like as well as subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. I want to start like I did in my Substitute Shinigami arc review and talk about the world building. Obviously, this arc focuses on getting us accustomed with Soul Society and its inner workings as we get a look into the Gote 13 or the 13 Core Guard Captains, the Serete as the place the Soul Reapers reside in, Central 46 as the governing body, the Dangai or the precipice world between the human world and Soul Society, and lastly, the Rukongai, which is the place where the souls that pass from the human world populate and reside in. And while that may not sound much, seeing Soul Society come alive is so unbelievably immersive and thrilling. With how much Soul Society was hyped up since the very beginning of the series, as Ichigo and friends infiltrate said place, finally getting to see it after 70 chapters was cathartic. Kubo definitely delivered on all expectations of Soul Society as a place for us to immerse ourselves in. Now we get into the story itself. And the best way for me to not have this video be over 1 hour long, since there's way too much in here that I can pick apart and just talk about, is to divide this arc, as I believe there's two stories that gets told here. First is of course the infiltration of Soul Society in order to rescue Rukia before getting executed, and the second one is the immediate aftermath quote unquote of said infiltration, as both of the stories get told separately but slowly and surely merge with one another at the very end, and the quote-unquote aftermath ends up being an elaborate ruse the entire time. But I'm getting way ahead of myself here. The infiltration to rescue Rukia is absolutely thrilling. The mere concept of humans who are now getting stronger alongside a mysterious talking cat breaking in the home of Soul Reapers who may have others in similar strength to Renji and Byakuya, who almost killed Ichigo if not even more, is absolutely insane. Insane! Like I said earlier, this arc has been hyped up since the very beginning of the series, and to say that it delivered is an understatement, not just with the world building of Soul Society, but also the story that gets told. With Ichigo and how indebted he is to Rukia for giving him the ability to protect those close to him, he uses that as fuel to beat what should have been unbeatable odds. We're talking Soul Reapers who lap Ichigo's age by times 20. If not even higher than that. From fighting Ikkaku in the beginning of the infiltration and getting us to start questioning Urahara and his identity, to Renji in a very emotional moment that has him finally admit to Ichigo that he needs him in order to rescue Rukia, to Kenpachi as Ichigo finally gets acquainted with his Sanpakuto, as Kenpachi's own lack of connection with Sanpakuto gets mirrored in a fight that is completely filled with rawness, to finally Byakuya as Ichigo is now a fully formed Soul Reaper with Bankai completely going against the system that is trying to execute Rukia. The entire journey Ichigo goes under in Soul Society arc is satisfying to witness. The few down moments in this arc, we see Ichigo trying his damnedest to even the playing field against the Soul Reapers as he trains with Yoruichi. I refrain from talking about the training session with Urahara back at the tail end of Substitute Shinigami arc, for a reason. And that of course is the fact that we only got a taste of the connection between Ichigo and Sangetsu, but in Soul Society arc, we get a full course meal. I don't want to divulge on every single foreshadowing piece for the people that are watching this as they read the series, but just know that Kubo is an absolute mad lad. Like, it's almost frightening how certain panels as Ichigo trains with Sangetsu feels connected to the final fight of the series. But putting that aside, seeing Ichigo essentially lock in as he is basically against the clock before Rukia's execution feels tense but also surprisingly relaxing. The confidence and resolve Ichigo shows as he is making the playing field even by achieving Bankai is one of my favorite things of this entire arc. I want to briefly touch on one particular fight after seeing the Tasir Blower anime and the original fight between Ichigo and Ishida, and that is the fight between Ishida and Mayuri. There's a couple of reasons why this fight is very important. First and foremost, this is the first fight where we see a Bankai get used in full glory with Mayuri. The second is the characterization Ishida goes through as the only Quincy at this very point of the story getting his payback against a Soul Reaper. And third, Mayuri's character gets shown in full display, showing us how evil Soul Society can truly be. I remember seeing this fight for the first time and being completely shocked at the evil actions that Soul Society allowed Mayuri to do against the Quincy's. Atrocities so bad they are pretty much inhumane in every way. This fight not only serves to show us that Soul Society is not an innocent place, but also the rivalry between Soul Reapers and Quincy's goes a lot deeper than what we as the audience were meant to believe. Now, of course, we can't really talk about this arc without mentioning Rukia, can we? Despite the fact that Rukia throughout this arc is pretty much incarcerated, she is what makes this entire rescue mission tense and thrilling. At the beginning of this arc, Kukaku and Ganju mentioned that they had an older brother named Kaien who ended up passing away, which fueled their dislike of Soul Reapers. So in the reveal that Rukia is the one who killed their brother who they've been trying to rescue the entire arc kicks in, it is absolutely impactful and downright shocking. Rukia also reflected on her past with Kaien in her cell, and oh man, this genuinely hurt. This hurt like hell. As I was reading this for the sake of this video, I couldn't help but be in shock and awe at how somber and depressing the presentation was. The immense guilt that is displayed throughout the Kaien tragedy shows how much Rukia blames herself and ultimately goes as far as to say she isn't worthy of saving and shedding blood over, accepting the punishment by Soul Society. But then we get a moment where Gin, like the slime that he is, plays with Rukia's emotions and says he will help her escape, and then immediately says he was kidding, making Rukia feel very unrested and second guess her very own feelings and resolves regarding her survival. Add on to the already well built relationship between Ichigo and Rukia and how she sees the same level of resolve as Kaien. Rukia's involvement in this arc, as little as it may be compared to other characters, is extremely crucial in what carries this arc to be as good as it is. This becomes even clearer as the most pivotal moment of this arc occurs as Ichigo, after fully training, puts a stop to Rukia's execution by preventing the Sokyoku from killing Rukia, showing us how strong Ichigo has truly gotten compared to what he was at the very beginning of not just the Soul Society arc, but the entire series at this point. I remember experiencing this arc for the very first time thinking that Ichigo wouldn't really leave much of a dent to Soul Society and go very far in rescuing Rukia because of the plethora of Soul Reapers that reside in this Serite, but somehow everything played in Ichigo's favor, which only begged the question, what was truly happening in Soul Society as Ichigo was invading? Here's where I finally talk about the character that everyone has been waiting for me to talk about, and that is of course Sosuke Aizen. To describe Aizen in a singular word, it would definitely be hypnotizing. From the very first panel where we get introduced to Aizen to the very last we get in Soul Society arc, Aizen simply grabs your attention 100% of the time. It isn't even a question that Aizen's role in this arc is extremely pivotal and ties this arc together. We as the audience at the very beginning were meant to believe that Aizen was an innocent captain who did right by Momo and potentially got brutally killed by Gin for whatever scheme he was planning. Then there's even more added tension as Captain Hitsugaya is very close with Momo, which makes him extremely overprotective over her as now she's potentially in harm's way as well. Gin is painted as this true manipulating villain that is pulling all of the strings, creating havoc in the Gotei 13 internally. Why would Gin do all this as humans are in the middle of invading Soul Society and impede on their protocol like usual? The confusion, the chaos, and the unrest as to what's truly going on remains until we finally get the answer. Central 46, the governing body of the Serete that keeps the Gotei 13 in check, is found completely dead as Hitsugaya and Rangiku find bodies in their blood extremely dry and cold. Now the question shifts to who were the ones giving the orders the entire time. Things get turned upside down as Momo not only sees Central 46 completely destroyed and desecrated, but also ends up seeing a still alive Aizen. She's extremely thrilled and happy that she finally is seeing the one that she's looked up to still alive. But the sense of uneasiness doesn't disappear, because the question shifts to what was Aizen doing all of this time as he played dead? As Momo cries tears of happiness while hugging him, Aizen says goodbye while stabbing her right in the chest. The very good guy image of Aizen fully being eradicated. There's no longer any question about it. Aizen played Soul Society like fiddles. We truly get a look into Aizen's mind and thought process as we get one of the most important quotes of not just his character, but also the entire series as he talks to a frustrated and angry Hitsugaya. Adoration is the state furthest from understanding. What makes Aizen's betrayal of Soul Society so incredibly frustrating isn't a matter of brains, but rather one of pure manipulation. Aizen, from the very moment he was chosen captain, all he wanted to achieve was his goal. Everyone else but what he appoints to as his lieutenant Gin be damned. This gets affirmed as we get a look into Aizen's Shikai, Kyoka Suigetsu. Its ability is Kansen Saimin, or perfect hypnosis. An ability so broken, Aizen is able to disrupt all senses of the one who sees the release of his Shikai, which finally reveals to us that Tozen has been working for Aizen the entire time. This entire twist is absolutely genius. Then we get into the final question though. What is Aizen trying to achieve by the execution of Rukia? Like I said early on, Soul Society arc tells two stories. The infiltration to save Rukia and the quote-unquote aftermath of the infiltration and the inner chaos that happens in the Serete. Those two stories happen at the same time, and at the very end all merges, giving you the full picture. The beauty of this arc lies on how much setup was happening as all of these two stories took place. Characters like Kenpachi and his struggle of communicating with his Sanpakuto, Byakuya and his internal battle of keeping the status quo even at the cost of Rukia's life, Renji getting the courage to do what's right even if he goes against his own captain who is extremely powerful and out of his depth, Rangiku's feelings on Gin and her questioning of his true motives, Orihime putting trust in Ichigo to have the strength to save Rukia despite her wanting to step into the battlefield even though she isn't strong enough, Tozen and his sense of justice, which is what makes him join forces with Aizen, and so much more. This arc truly goes on a massive undertaking as it not only introduces so many characters but also gets us to know and care about them while also still fleshing out the ones we were already familiar with. And because of that, the final pivotal moment of this arc as everyone is told what Aizen has done as he's in the Sokyoku Hill ready to finally achieve his goal feels so unbelievably tense and frightening. Renji and Ichigo try to team up in order to take Aizen down to protect Rukia, and of course, this does not work as we get one of the most disrespectful moments of the entire series as Aizen stops Ichigo's Bankai with a singular finger and almost cuts him from the waist down. This puts into perspective that despite how much Ichigo worked hard in order to defeat Byakuya does not mean shit compared to Aizen, and he has a long journey of strength to go under. Then finally we get the massive reveal that Rukia, since the very beginning of the series after Ichigo took Rukia's powers, Urahara hid a certain orb called the Hogyoku inside of her body without Rukia knowing. This very orb is the answer to bridge the gap between Soul Reapers and Hollows in order to achieve and gain immense power. This is a humongous moment as we not only get confirmation that Soul Reaper and Hollow powers can be merged together, but also that if Ichigo has any chance to catch up to Aizen, he needs to tap into another part of himself, and that is his Hollow side. From the very beginning of Ichigo regaining Soul Reaper powers at the end of Substitute Shinigami arc, to even throughout Soul Society arc as Ichigo was recovering, we kept seeing a Hollow mask follow him. The build-up as to what this could possibly mean reaches its peak in the fight between Ichigo and Byakuya as he gets taken over by the mask, which taps into a more animalistic side of him before he takes over again. Now it's clear that Ichigo has a Hollow inside of him, which gives him the potential to maybe stand up to Aizen in the future. The remaining Gotei 13 tries to corner Aizen and his allies, but things have simply gone too far. Byakuya went to the point as to take a stabbing in order to save Rukia, finally showing that things have gone completely out of control. There's absolutely no going back after causing so much chaos in the Serete. Aizen alongside Gin and Tozen rise as they escape the grasp of a betrayed Soul Society with millions of questions as Aizen finally shatters all of his goodwill, saying that he will stand atop the heavens. Soul Society arc is Battle Shonen Masterclass. After going through this arc, there really shouldn't be a question as to why Soul Society arc is as highly regarded as it is. There's so much to appreciate with this arc. The last thing I want to talk about is the art evolution. I know it's a bit weird to talk about this considering that we're in the second arc, but I just truly want to point out that in just merely 70 chapters later, as Soul Society arc begins, the art improvement by Tite Kubo is immense, and it's what truly made the experience memorable as someone who's finally tapping in with the manga and taking every detail in. The paneling is absolutely smooth and seamless, which made the reading experience of this arc gripping and exciting for me. And while the colored version of the manga is really enjoyable as well, there's something beautiful about the black and white aspect of Bleach's presentation that feels very chill and relaxing and just full of personality. I know it's weird to say that considering that most manga is indeed black and white, but the way in which Kubo manages to utilize black and white is so unique, and you don't find that in the medium of manga very often. There is a certain level of skill that makes Kubo stand from a humongous amount of other mangaka out there, at least in my opinion. I think I've said everything that I wanted to say regarding this arc, so leave your thoughts on the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video and cannot wait to see me cover the Arrancar saga next, which I'll talk about the entire thing, then go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel to not miss it alongside any other cool videos that I'll be making in the future. And with that, hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day wherever you are. See you guys next time.